you very much, Dr. Irfan. I think such an interesting output that you have actually shared with all of us. Yeah, I think my students learn a lot of things, and my colleagues as well who are here. They have learned so many things about what Erlangga had done over the years, and now I think some of them are interested to do some of your Amerta program. Just to let you know, the students, my students here, that every semester, yeah, there's an opening for a short-term mobility. So last time you could spend a semester in Surabaya, yeah, but now with the global pandemic, it would have to be virtual online. But you see, I'm seeing all the chat exchanges taking place, and I'm seeing that you know, there's a lot of excitement that's been going on between the students. I hope to see the friendship continue on to a greater level after this. Yeah, and okay, can you see my PowerPoint here? Is that all right? Yeah, do you find?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so it was very stimulating to hear the Indonesian experience, going all the way to what happens in Erlangga, and that's something that I would like to share in Malaysia as well. It's an interesting highlight, an interesting input on what the world is today. When Marshall McLuhan talked about technological determinism in the 60s, this is what he's talking about now, you know, when he was talking about how the world will be connected by the web, we thought it would just end with just the social media at one point, or people emailing one another or having to fax one another earlier on. But what we have seen now is that the transformation that has taken place is amazing. I mean, we used to only meet at physical meetings, isn't it, Dr. Irfan, in some foreign country all this while. But I think I've seen and communicated with you a lot more this semester, you know, rather than the amount of time that we've met over the years. So technology has really changed. It has affected global communication to a certain level and given a different level of excitement. I know 2020 has been a challenging year for all the students, be it those in Indonesia or Malaysia. But take it that you guys are the first group of students that have to experience the new normal. You guys are making history to learn, to experience learning in a very different environment altogether. And you guys are the way forward. And I feel that, you know, you embrace that situation as well. But before I begin my presentation, I would just like to show you a campus of Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia. It is a very, very green campus. And surprisingly, this is even my current student has not been in this campus, Dr. Irfan, because they are, a lot of them are first year, first semester students. So I would like to tell the students in Erlangga and also Malaysia that this place exists. It is our university campus, and it's what you see here is only about less than 10% of the actual size of the whole campus, and over 50% of the campus is still green. Yeah. So it's a very cooling area, a beautiful nature, surrounded by nature, and it's an exciting place to be in. And I do hope that one day your students would get the opportunity to come here to visit, to do a short semester program, or to do visits. So if you ever plan, and once we've reached to finding a vaccine, and you know, when travel can take place again, I hope the students from Erlangga would consider visiting us here in Malaysia, and I'm sure my students will accept all of you with open arms, definitely. Now, at the end of this presentation, my aim is that for you to understand the experience of Malaysian universities in facing COVID-19 pandemic. We would learn how COVID-19 has affected internationalization of higher education, and we look at some strategies in facing with these new challenges faced by the International Relations Office. And for us here, Dr. Irfan, we always hold two caps previously for you as an academic scholar in media and communication, and also International Relations Office. But once again, I want to congratulate you to be made as a Vice Dean now for the Faculty of Social and Political Sciences. So congratulations on that part, and I'm happy to see the progress. Now, just to share what we went through. HEI is higher education institution. Yes. So what did COVID-19 and the Malaysian Higher Education Institution went through? Now, this was our status yesterday. Every day we would be getting this visual on our mobile phone, on our social media. People would start sharing, and this would be issued by the Ministry of Health in Malaysia. There is a source of information. COVID-19, we went through a lot of stages of movement orders that we went through. In one point in a time, we were at a single digit situation, but currently we are at a 3-digit to a 4-digit situation where the numbers are increasing, and we've arrived to the second or third wave of the situation. The guy on the right that you see is actually Datuk Sri Nur Hisham, who is the Deputy General of Ministry of Health in Malaysia. We wait for his announcement every day. Malaysians got stuck in front of the TV wanting to hear what he says. There is a true, reliable source from the Ministry of Health coming from a spokesperson who is known to be credible, who only explains things based on factual reasoning, who is able to answer media questions professionally and able to speak in both the Malay and English language, and able to do that. So what we have in Malaysia is a face of COVID-19 in the sense that a lot of people felt when he speaks, you feel reassured, which is quite interesting. So you have a figure that you can look through. So previously, we used to have every day, 5 o'clock, we would wait for his announcement. Now it has been changed to maybe once every 2 to 3 days. Having an authoritative figure in sharing information to the public plays a strong role. It makes that information is known to come from a credible source, and the way he explains it put assurance to a lot of Malaysians. So there's a lot of messages that he puts through that a lot of people stand through and sort of given him that support. And him being a total expert does a lot in terms of how Malaysian perceives the issue of COVID-19. Now, in Malaysia, we have this thing called movement control orders. So effective 18th of March 2020 all the way to 31st December 2020, this is what was mentioned under the movement control order. We've gone through a movement control order, a conditional movement control order, an enhanced movement control order, and recovery movement control order. But right now, where I am staying, where UKM is, we are in the state of conditional movement control order, where there are some limitations. We are required to be working from home right now, and we are also dealing with, a lot of economy is open, but it's also constrained in terms of you can only go maybe 2 to 4 people sitting down at a restaurant. There's some limitation. There's a lot of sports that you cannot play just yet. You can do individual sports, but contact sports are not allowed to be done. There's a very stringent policy towards going to mosque or church, the situation of going to these places is also affected. So the movement control order there has been what guides Malaysian as well. So we know which situation we are in. If we are in the enhanced movement control order, the businesses might be affected as well. And food will be provided to the houses as well. So there's a lot of stages, and Malaysians are informed of all these control orders that we have to go through. There's a lot of messages that go on. In general, Malaysians are understanding and quite united with the fact that you have to wear a mask when you go out, because this is challenging. And I noticed that in Asian countries, Dr. Irfan and students, it's a lot easier to tell people to wear a mask. But it's far more challenging when it becomes a human rights matter, especially in America, for example. So coming from a very collectivistic society, what you notice is that we think about the greater good for all. We think about what we do will impact other people. Now, people who come from countries that are more individualistic will tend to focus more on their rights of individual, their human rights to wear or to not wear a mask. So the society setup is quite interesting as well, on how these messages go on. So in general, the message, we've done previous studying, we have our health communication experts as well. They do understand the basic requirement of sanitizing your hands, washing your hands, of maintaining social distancing, of physical distancing, and wearing a mask as key issues. So the Ministry of Health would issue out a lot of these posters, visuals. We discovered that visuals play stronger for people to be able to understand. Now, if you notice, languages given are also quite diverse. Malaysia is a very diverse country. There are messages in Chinese characters, there are messages in Malay, English as well. And we've also noticed that one of the groups that were affected during this situation were groups from the migrant community. And, you know, how do we communicate to migrants or refugees who are on transit? And how do you want to communicate to them that you need to wear a mask, you need to maintain social distancing in a challenging time where social distancing could not be even an option to them? You know, as we could see with the cases in Singapore, with the cases of the migrant hostels and all affecting. So it's quite an interesting thing to see, how do we measure all this situation and how do we convey and communicate the message to the people in Malaysia as well. Now, so what happens with the movement control order? So the borders were locked in the way that there was a control of inbound and outbound flow of local and international travelers. There must be reasons. For example, right now, for a Malaysian students to study abroad, if they have an offer letter from a foreign university, they are able to go, but we are not encouraging short-term program to go abroad. You know, in Malaysia right now, if your student were to come for a semester abroad, they will not be able to even have that option, as the visa requirement does not allow for a short-term mobility right now. So we only welcome international students who are coming full-time at the moment. Because if you come for short-term, if you come for 14 weeks, you come to Malaysia, you're going to be quarantined for 2 weeks, and then you go back home, you're going to be quarantined for another 2 weeks. You know, there's like 4 weeks of quarantine already. So that's quite a difficult situation. So the inbound and outbound flow is allowed in, but within control. Okay, so no one is just free to leave and come into the country. University was closed, so classes has been moved to another date, and it was 6 weeks later. Okay, so classes was put to a halt for 6 weeks in March, and then it was only introduced back later, right after that. There was strict campus control. Students who were in campus were not allowed to go out of campus. This was in March, okay? This was in March. But what happened was that students were given discounted accommodations and they were given free meals throughout the 6 weeks, all right? And if they needed anything, they could, you know, they could request from the university fellow or college representative. So that was how strict Malaysia was in dealing with the situation. We wanted to make sure that it was all contained and that there was no cluster coming out from the university as well. So for an international student, it was very nerve-wracking, wasn't it? It was nervous. Do I get to go home to my country with the borders being locked down? There were many, many questions on what are the procedures, how are we going? You know, they were full of uncertainties. And for us at the international office, we were not only dealing with students, we were dealing with parents, with management teams, you know, families of home universities and embassies. So for your student, if your students were here during March, Dr. Irfan, they would have to request a letter from the Embassy of Indonesia here in Malaysia to get that letter to allow them to go back to Surabaya. So it was, you know, that level of control here in Malaysia as well. So a lot of students were also worried about classes and research and not knowing what to do and what to explore. And it's still very much full of uncertainties. Now, so for the international office, for where we were, we need to understand new policies and directives. People were, you know, coming up with new policies and directives. Can students leave the country? How do we, you know, what about our students who are abroad? How do we bring them home to our country? So there was still a lot of uncertainties, and we had to deal with all these different peoples as well. And we wanted to ensure student welfare. So student needed to be protected, and there must be a proper communication flow to send from one person to the message from the university to the students. The students should not be left hanging. So like for us, since mobility students were under UKM Global, the International Relations Center, what we did was, I think one of my staff who is here, Hafiz as well, was in charge to contact them maybe every 2 days just to ask how they were, what are the support that they needed, what are the things that they needed for them to be able to maintain, that sort of sanity to be in a situation at that time, that period in time. So now university has opened, but a lot of students are still taking their classes through a virtual platform. Not many students are in campus as yet. There might be students who are back in campus, but only those who may need to use studios or production, or even need to use laboratory, for example. Okay. Now, so these were some of the messages, for example, that we did. Only students that cannot, due to variations, are allowed to stay at a residential college during the period of time. So these posters were out, and we need to convey the message. There was also preparedness and response center. So we also encourage a hotline for them to call if they have any problems. International students have any problem, local students have any problem. There were issues of counseling. There were mental health issues. People were not prepared to suddenly be trapped in such a small space for a long time. So we made sure that people were being given that level of support. And this was open to all our international and local students. So there were also English translations of communication messages. So, same posters were being distributed, but we ensure that different groups of people are covered as well. So that, at times we take it for granted that, that a Malay notice would just be understood by all, but we managed to do that. We managed to, have dual languages for all our posters. So what happens to inbound and outbound mobility for our students? Students were called back by their home universities. So we remembered Indonesian universities were calling, we want our students back. Japanese universities were saying, our students are coming back tomorrow. They wanted to make sure everyone was safe back to their country. So we had students as well. We had students in Germany, we had students in Japan, we had students in Indonesia, Sweden, and we wanted to ensure a safe journey for students from college pickup to student departure. So if you had your students here, we made sure that they were sent by our car, university car, and to ensure that they safely arrive at the airport. And we will tell them at the airport, don't talk to anyone, maintain your distance. We were giving that support. But it was also a challenge. Flights were being cancelled everywhere. So one day the students say, I'm going home, I've got a flight for tomorrow, and then suddenly tomorrow comes and they would tell me, doctor, the flight's been cancelled. So it's always it was very, very depressing as well. So in Malaysia, we've postponed all physical mobility programs until 31st December 2020, and it's also subject to further directives. Now, we were able to bring back our students from Indonesia, and we had the support of Education Malaysia Indonesia at that period of time. And these were our students in UI, in Universitas Indonesia. So I felt that this picture was a very sad picture to look at, because they are holding a Malaysian passport. And I know the picture is a bit blurred, but if you could see, all the flights were cancelled here. And this was at the airport in Jakarta, all the flights were cancelled, except for one that says on schedule, if you could look. And that was the flight that they could get back to go home. So just imagine at that period of time, they have already left their accommodation in Indonesia and they were coming back home. And suddenly the flight was cancelled. We had to get the support from Education Malaysia to assist with the students. But this was very memorable that they were able to arrive safely, at that period of time. And this strict SOP, we had strict standard of procedure in picking up students at the airport from the different countries. So this was what we were doing, and if you could see, this would be me here, taking, and I had the opportunity to wear the PPE, the protective equipment suit. And it was crazy at this time, because it was, you do not know what to expect. All of them were sanitized, all their bags were sanitized. They were all brought back to the campus and to be quarantined at that period of time. So this was interesting in terms of what had happened as well. So all students were provided with free meals. We made sure that everyone is taken care of. No one had to spend money. And it's quite interesting if you look at this. International and local students join in to make PPE for frontliners. Interestingly, in Malaysia as well, all our fashion designers, popular fashion designers in Malaysia, has actually united and come up with, they use their skills to come up with the protective gear, protective equipment to the community. So what we did was all the local international students joined in this drive and created the protective equipment gear for all the international, for the Malaysian frontliners in dealing with this COVID-19. We also initiated a social media campaign, with hashtag I'm fine, hashtag I'm okay. It's about them telling their parents, don't worry, I'm fine here, I'm fine, ba. Don't worry, I'm fine. Jangan risau, saya okay. So all of them were going with this Saya Okay campaign just to tell their parents that, they are all okay here in Malaysia, in UKM, and they were well taken care of. So how has this affected internationalization? KPI was one thing, but it was the least thing on our mind. It was also about ensuring safety at a period of time. So are faculties ready for online classes, and are students ready for going online into full mode? And what does our students and partners expect from us? Will virtual mobility take place? And and ministry and national policies keep on changing. So for all of us, suddenly we noticed that within the past few months, we noticed that Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, WebEx were all becoming words that we started using. In terms of teaching of classes, well, asynchronous classes were also taking place on Facebook, on WhatsApp, and also on Telegram as well, for students to have this new way of experiencing education. Virtual mobility was becoming a popular opportunity. So we did that as well, Dr. Irfan here, and we discovered that the support from the students have been amazing. We also bid farewell to our students. Now, usually we would end a farewell, like this was a Christmas party where we said farewell to our mobility students. Usually, if it's in May, we would have had a big iftar celebration to say goodbye to our students. But this year, everything, our virtual goodbye was through an online platform as such. So it was quite sad, but it was something that we went on, we continued on at a virtual platform. So in terms of virtual mobility was done, we needed to identify the right courses. We needed to identify academics. So it's not just about students dealing with these new challenges, but it's also the academics actually trying to say, oh dear, what is Zoom? What is Microsoft Teams? And having to change their content to assist them in bringing their offline content online. And that has always been a challenge as well. So what we saw here is an opportunity for them to actually improve themselves further and take this opportunity to learn in terms of how is it that they can further enhance themselves and equip themselves with the necessary technologies. So even until today, the academics are still attending courses to come up with better content for online content. So the training of academics, you need to develop a thorough course outline. You need to consider all possible options of virtual delivery. We need to understand the infrastructure and digital divide. So some of our students live in very rural area. How do they actually get that opportunity to learn and not to be at a disadvantage due to the digital divide? So we had industries coming in, telco industries coming in to support students. We have alumni coming in to help assist with payment of laptops and support students as well. So it wasn't just one person's effort. The university had to work with alumni, industries, and the students' participation. So all of them were very interesting things. So we also had an international student base. We had students who were in Germany with time zones that were crazy. So we needed to work out what's the best situation to deal with this current pandemic. Yeah. We also had virtual summer programs. So usually our summer programs, we have a lot. So one example, we would have like around 20 to 30 physical students. But this year we broke records having over 102 students. We wanted to have only 50. We wanted to maintain the intimacy of the program, but students were asking to come in. So we had students, 102 students who registered, and they came from 14 different countries, something that we would have never had if we had just done a physical mobility. So this is something that's happening currently. There's this ASEAN Youth Volunteer Program. AYVP program where UKM works with the ministry, and also the ASEAN Youth Volunteer Program Foundation. What we see, I was an invited guest yesterday, so there's over 475 participants coming from different parts of ASEAN and Asia. And I've even seen students coming from Australia. I was communicating with one from RMIT. All these people came in. You could see this dynamics in the classroom, people sharing opinions coming from different cultural backgrounds, different experiences, different opinions as well. And I'm also happy to see this. I mean, previously we've not had two groups of students, Indonesia and Malaysia, combining and listening to our joint lecture. But what we have now is to see this, and this is so engaging and historical to a certain part. And I'm happy to do this. And just about 2 to 3 weeks ago, we had our students, my Malaysian students, had the opportunity to do some group projects with students from Toyo University in Japan and De La Salle University in Philippines. So, giving them this cultural exposure and teamwork with people of cross-cultural background would further enhance them to, to become a better global citizen at the same time. So every time every time we go virtual, we go online, we always have this worry. Will students be able to accept it? Will are they okay with it? How are the situations going to be like? And the truth is, I don't think there's any problem with the students' generation, the Gen Z of the situation. I think the students are excited. I think the students, they were born with a phone attached to their hand, basically. They are what we call digital natives. The one that's having problem and trying to cope with the current situation is maybe our generation, Dr. Irfan, because they were born with it. I think they were all born with a TikTok account by now, everything is Instagrammable to them. Everything is about how technology is a part of their life. Take the phone from them and they could it can be chaotic. It could be major drama if the phone is taken away from them. So they're open to new ideas. They're a fast learner. They will just know how to use technology. And we go this to the youngest generation of today. If among the earlier motor skills of children in the old days was holding a pencil, right? But now it's actually being able to swipe. I remembered growing up having to color the coloring book, like that. And now my nephew just press like that and it's all green already, for example. So we're talking about a new society, a new generation. They're social media enthusiasts. They are already living the virtual life. So it's about the baby boomer generation. It's about the generation XY to come up and keep up with their pace. They're not going to slow down. So we have to really catch up and be ahead of them. So like, for example, I used to think TikTok was like, this is a new, something new for the students, something new for the younger generation. It's going to be another dance-based social media. But then I discovered I've learned so much from TikTok, and culturally as well. It's so engaging. I've learned languages through TikTok. I've learned cultural issues through TikTok. I've learned about human anatomy through TikTok. I've learned how to shoot a camera, shoot pictures using cameras and videos through TikTok. And of course, a lot of you have learned how to style yourself looking at TikTok, jumping from, one scene to another. So, the opportunity is actually bigger, and it's actually opening our generation to what is exciting here as well. So webinar and online meetings is now common. Yeah? I mean, there's always a webinar somewhere, everywhere. So it's always exciting to see that. And we actually, we had this as well, where we had all the presidents of the universities. One thing at UKM we host is a University Presidents Forum. So all the university presidents come and give a talk. And we had Professor Tan Eng Chai from NUS, Dr. Irfan. So he came and gave a talk, and that's like a top 20 university in the world. I would say top 11 because they are number 11 and number 12. So this is something exciting that could have been very, very difficult in the old days. And it's a great way to catch up with existing and new partners, as you've mentioned as well, Dr. Irfan. So we've been catching up. These are people that we've been catching up for meetings, and being in touch and contacting one another, it's always been so positive. And a lot of things got to be done across time zones, across different things were being able to be discussed, and it's just exciting to see people coming from all that. So these are some of the strategies that we needed. We had to have a strong ministry university relationship, strong communication flow. We had a support system for all students to know that someone's there. We've got a training of academics. Everything needs to be sorted in the university. It wasn't just one part. We needed to have no loopholes. We needed our foundation to be extremely strong at a period of time. So we also, these are some of the findings from our partner universities. I'm not going to share that. So what are the future plans that we're going to do? We hope to get feedback from our international students who went through the crisis. We want to give further training for academics on online content. We're looking at COIL. So this is something we can look at, Dr. Irfan. Collaborative online international learning. So maybe we can have a joint group assignment or something later on, yeah, for next year to come. We're looking at more virtual short-term programs. We've got the ULEAD program, the Engineering Summer School, and now the ASEAN Youth Volunteer Program. We want to continue a relationship with all our partners from different countries in the world. We want to make full use of the safe course. So much money has been saved from traveling, isn't it? So we want to see how we can invest this for other opportunities and explore new innovations as well. We want to enhance cross-cultural competence through virtual form of internationalization. We need to review our KPIs. We can't be living in the old traditional way anymore. And we want to incorporate virtual and physical mobility for the future. It could be more of a hybrid experience as well. So I will end this conversation. I'm so sorry, this presentation. I'm so sorry if I've gone over time, Dr. Irfan. I would love to be in touch with the students from Erlangga as well. These are my details. I can be reached at alba@ukm.edu.my, or also follow me on Instagram at dr.alba75. And I hope to keep in touch with all of you and look forward to your questions as well. Thank you, Dr. Irfan.